Well, Sandy Carter, our keynote speaker this morning, is not someone who we had to find. She's one of the most prominent women executives in the world, and also at IBM. Her title is General Manager of Cloud Ecosystems. And what she's going to do today is something she did for us a few months ago at our show in New York, which is, I think, square the circle. Her title is Geek Girls Are Chic, but as you'll find out, there's a lot more to the rubric of women in technology. So please welcome Sandy Carter.
Thank you, Roger. I appreciate it. Thanks. Well, good morning. You know, Roger told me to break a leg, so I did. So hopefully today's session, even though it's called Geek Girls Are Chic, and I know we don't have a lot of girls or women in the audience, hopefully every single one of you will take away something from this because it is based on a lot of research about how to leverage and use the talents in your organization, diversity to drive innovation. So while we're talking, I'd love for you guys to tweet about this subject. My Twitter hashtag is Sandy_Carter. So if you're on Twitter, Sandy_Carter, you can find me on all the different areas for social as well. So let's get started. So if you think about what's happening in the marketplace today, if you look at hiring for innovation and diversity, look at the very young ages. Men and women start out in kindergarten, pretty equal interest in math, computer science. But as you move forward, something tends to change along the way. So today, about 48% of our worldwide workforce are women, but only 24% of women end up choosing a career in science, technology, engineering, or math. So there's obviously something going on there that is causing this diversity, which helps companies to drive more innovation. Something's changing and something's causing that to happen. And in fact, even when women are in college and they decide to major in engineering or major in computer science, they're twice as likely to have less than 2 years of experience before they shift their careers to something else besides technology. And this comes from the Stack Overflow 2015 developer survey. Now, this impacts all of us, I have to tell you. And let me just give you some numbers that I think are very eye-opening. So if you're a dad in the audience, think about your daughters or your nieces. And if you're a woman, this should also really touch the heart of it. So think about this. Less than 6% of venture capitalists, and we are right now in the home of venture capital, less than 6% are women. Did you know that women startups, women entrepreneurs, are 15% more profitable than other startups? So if you have a founder or someone on that founding team that's a woman, the profitability is higher by 15%. But did you know that women-owned businesses, women entrepreneurs, are 40% less likely to get funded? 40%. So there's a couple of things that we are doing. We've done a piece of research. We acquired a company at IBM called Connexa, and they have a whole research arm, and we decided what could we do, not just to help women, but to help the industry to grow in their innovation. What types of things might we do at companies that could help in this particular area? And so we came up with 5 career hacks. Now, whether you're a man or a woman, these career hacks will work for you too in your career. But as we go through, I'll issue some challenges to the audience on what you can do to encourage more women, more young girls, perhaps even your own daughter, your own nieces, to choose a career in technology. Because face it, every business today depends upon technology. Technology is absolutely crucial. So we're going to go through these 5 career hacks, and we're going to start with my first one, which I love, which is before we were talking about knowledge being power. And today we talk about acting like an open API. So acting like an open API, an API is obviously an application programming interface, and it has a lot of uses. And in fact, today we're seeing businesses who open up their API to others to code are actually more successful. We just completed a study of startups, and those startups who close off their APIs versus those who open their APIs for others to code to. And it is 10 to 1. Startups are more successful if they open up their APIs. So why wouldn't that apply to people as well? And it absolutely does. And so what we looked at was, we said, well, why are they more successful when they open up their API? When they open up that knowledge, when they open up to others to share and to participate with them in their ecosystem. And here's why. What we're finding is that companies who open up their API tend to have a greater reach in the marketplace. They tend to have greater and stronger engagement because others are part of their ecosystem. They're not over to the side. They're a part of the ecosystem. And therefore, they generate more ideas, more innovation for the company. In fact, yesterday, we had a fashion and tech show down in New York City. It was called the Startup Runway, where we featured Internet of Things embedded in wearables and fashion. We had over 1,000 people to register for the event, and most of them showed up. It was an amazing event. And what we found was even those startups in IoT that are opening up their APIs, whether it be for a wearable in a piece of clothing or in a shoe or an application for a restaurant, any of those that open up their API are actually growing about 5 times faster than others. So because an open API in a company really tends to work, how do you open up your API as a person for your career? So I wanted to give you a couple of examples. I have a bunch of stories I want to share with you today. So I actually went to India about 3 years ago. I went to Mumbai. How many of you guys have been to India? It's a great place, thrilling thing. So I tweeted, I am headed to Mumbai, and I'm going to do a keynote at this session. So when I showed up, it's like a 24-hour flight. I was living in New York at the time. Mascara is dripping down my face because I've been flying for so long. I check into the hotel. The general manager of the hotel comes up to me and he says, Ms. Carter, the group that's meeting you got so big that I had to move them to another room. Now, typically when an IBM or an executive travels over to another country, they send a couple of IBMers to greet you. But it was late. It was like 11 p.m. at night. So I had told the IBM team, don't come. So I thought, oh, well, they came anyway. So I checked in, and I went down to the room, and there was this great Bollywood music and people dancing, and I shut the door. I went back to the general manager. I said, those definitely aren't IBMers. They're having too much fun. So can you take me to where my team is? And he goes, oh, no, that's definitely your room. So I still remember it today. The general manager took me back to the room, and Anil came running up to me. Sandy, how was your flight? Great. How are your 2 daughters? How's your one-eyed dog? I have a dog with one eye. I'm like, how does this guy know this? I don't know this person. It turns out that he was the social media president for the Mumbai Social Media Club. He had seen my tweet, and he said, wow, she's coming to Mumbai. Called the IBM office. They said I was too busy. So he decided to just show up at the hotel, send a note to the social media club, and about 500 people showed up at the hotel. So the general manager put them in a ballroom at 11 p.m. at night. And I said, Anil, you guys are all here. I don't really know how to do this Bollywood dancing. What do you need from me? And he said, we have a projector set up in the middle of the room, and we're hoping that you can share your knowledge about social media. What should we do? How can we use social to grow our businesses? And that's when I had my aha moment. Sharing your knowledge, sharing your thoughts can have a really big difference and an impact, not just on your local team, but using social can expand your impact broader. And opening up that API can make a big difference in your career. So getting back to the subject here more directly, girls and women, what we found from our study is that if a woman has a strong role model, has a mentor, that could be a dad, that could be someone at work, that could be someone volunteering at the Girls Who Code hackathon. If they have a mentor and they share their knowledge, like I stayed until 2 in the morning in Mumbai doing my social media presentation. I never will tweet again before I go to Mumbai, by the way. If you can share your knowledge, then you can help others grow. And I still remember at IBM, one executive always told me to reach back and pull others through, because it not only helps you give back, but it helps others along the way. So acting like an open API, how do you do that, whether you're a man or a woman? First, you need to have a point of view. You need to have something that you're known for. So I just got selected to be one of the top 10 social media legends. I work hard at social. I work hard at cloud. I want to make sure that I keep my expertise up to date, and I have a definite point of view. Do you? And then how do you share that? Do you do a blog? Are you teaching? Do you participate in hackathons? How do you share that? And at a minimum, are you a mentor, a role model to somebody out there, hopefully both men and women, looking at young girls and young boys? Are you mentoring them to bring them along into this world of technology? So that's our first career hack. Act like an open API. Share all that knowledge. I bet sitting in this room today, I'm just looking at some of your faces, some of you I know, you have so much expertise. Sharing that and setting that example for a young girl or woman can make all the difference in the world for her staying in that profession even longer. Okay, so our hack number 2 is around the new world, and it's about being intentional about your social media influence. We sponsored with GSV, which is Global Silicon Valley, a new camp called Reboot. And we set up the camp to teach data science skills to women who had been out of the workforce between 2 and 5 years. Many of them took off time to take care of kids or their aging parents or for other reasons. And so we actually advertised this. We sold out in less than an hour. We had all these folks come in. And one of the big ahas in the class, other than just teaching data science, which I think is a fabulous skill to have, was that all the women said in the last 5 years, as a technologist, think about how you learn and how much that's changed, how you leverage YouTube, how you go to GitHub, how you leverage these social tools is now more impactful than ever in the past. And so one of the things that we encourage women and girls, all people, to do is to be intentional about their social media influence. And this is another big aha chart to me. So I run billion-dollar businesses at IBM, and every year, as I look at investing, I look at the markets. I look at category markets, and I look at geographies. This year, this is the report that I got from our market intelligence team on where the new markets are. Now, what do you notice right away? Well, you've got China and India on there like normal. But the other big thing I highlighted in yellow is the new markets that the market intelligence team was highlighting to me were not geographies. They're social media sites. They're Facebook, they're LinkedIn, they're Tencent. So it really was a big eye-opener that said we have to relook at the way we market. We have to relook at our social influence, not just as a company, but also as people. And are you doing that intentionally? So I'll give you another great story of how this can impact your business. And by now you're probably thinking, wow, she tweets before she goes anywhere, which is what I do. So I tweeted before I went to London. I'm headed to London. And the chief marketing officer for a very large bank direct messaged me back, DM'd me back, and said, wow, if you're in London, I'd love to spend a couple hours with you. Now, this was a client that actually wasn't a client. It was a company, a very large bank. IBM did not have a footprint in that bank. So, of course, I said, yes, I'm going to come and see you. So we spent 3 hours with the CMO going through a whole set of social strategies, social in the cloud. And anyway, we ended up with a great offer for them that they took. So at the meeting, our IBM sales rep said to the CMO, I'm really fascinated that you asked Sandy for a meeting. Because, she's from the United States, I live here in London, I've called you, I emailed you, and I asked you to come and talk about social in the cloud. And so the CMO said, do you want me to be honest? And he said, yeah. So he goes, well, the first thing I did when you called me was I looked up your social profile. And I noticed that you haven't posted on LinkedIn for about 3 years. And then I looked for your blog, because you want to talk to me about the social cloud, and you didn't have one. So I thought, oh, for sure they tweet. And I saw that you tweeted once and you had 7 followers. So I thought, what could I learn from you about the social cloud when you're not even participating in today's world? So another aha, clients are looking for you, not just Googling what you've done, but they're looking at your LinkedIn profile. You guys probably do that, right? Looking at what you tweet about. They're looking at what you do on Facebook. What do you do on Tumblr? And that impact, if you're not looking at that as an essential element of who you are or teaching your kids to do that, it's a big mistake. Because as we go forward in the new agile world where you've got squads and projects that come together and then dissipate, people look at that rating and your social influence. So one of the things that we encourage people to do is to leverage social, and this is another business use. We have something called Watson. IBM has declared this is the era of cognitive, and cognitive is fed off of social data. And so what Watson can do, Watson is our cognitive engine in this era of cognitive computing. Watson can actually tell you your personality based on 100 tweets, 100 Facebook posts. And in fact, I didn't believe it, so I actually did it myself. I tried it with Facebook, I tried it with Twitter, with Tumblr, and it all worked pretty amazingly. It said that, you know, I'm a rebel, I like to do things differently, I'm very open, I'm an entrepreneur, I like cooperation, I like people, but I'm really picky. I like to get things done right. Now, how could you use this? Well, we've got many companies leveraging this social piece of data in the way that they sell. So instead of doing a recommendation based on past history, they're doing it based on people who have the similar personality. So let's say Roger and I, who introduced me, Roger and I have the same personality. We're more than likely to buy the same things than someone who just bought one item that I also bought. In our pilots, we're seeing 40 to 50% higher cross-sell and upsell by using and leveraging this social data. So what this tells you is that your social influence, the use of social data, is going to be extremely important. So digital computing exists today. Data flows from that. Cognition will follow that. So it's really important that for skills of the future, whether you're a man or a woman, that you know what that element is. So as you're looking at and hopefully mentoring a young girl or a woman or looking at this for yourself, there's a couple things I would encourage you to do. And one is to be active on social, whatever that right social place is. Might be GitHub if you're a developer. It might be LinkedIn if you're looking for business associates. There are also, biotech groups. There's a great new Internet of Things group that I belong to. There's a new fashion and tech group. Be active on social and encourage your kids to be active on social as well. Be consistent. So that example I gave you in London where someone had started a LinkedIn profile and not posted for 3 years, that kind of stuff is noticed. And then I also look at influencer scores. So Clout, for instance, K-L-O-U-T, your Clout score. Your cred score. What are you known for? What do people look at on social to see your influence? So changing the game and innovating requires that we all look at social data. And in particular, this is an area that a lot of women and girls tend to be very strong in. So it's a great one to mentor and teach them in this particular space. So that's our hack number 2. So number 1, be an open API. Number 2, make social essential in what you're doing. Whether your expertise is cloud or Internet of Things or DevOps, make sure that social is part of who you are. So our hack number 3, in particular for women, is to win the hard sell, show your soft side. In fact, one of my mentors is a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Gittimore. How many of you have heard of him? But he has written more best-selling business books than anyone else in the world. And his prime expertise is sales. And one of his famous quotes says, if you've got a product that's better than someone else, the buyer typically still goes with someone that they like over the product. And that's usually true about 80% of the times. They want to like the person. And so that means that you need to show your soft side. So I wanted to give you a story. I was asked by IBM to take over this team, and I was young back then. And when I took over the team was having performance issues and some morale issues. And so I came in as a young woman manager, all men on my team. So I decided one of the first things I needed to fix was communication among the team, as well as some other things. So I started doing weekly staff meetings. And then I decided, I needed to motivate each person differently, because each person on my team had a different personality. Now, I love quotes. If you see me tweet, you'll see me tweet quotes out all the time. So I decided, wouldn't it be a great idea, every Monday, I'm going to pick out a special quote for each member of my team and leave it on their desk. How many of you think that's a good idea? Nobody's raising their hand. So, okay, good. So every Monday I'd leave these quotes. After 3 weeks, one of the guys on my team was 6'7". He was an ex-basketball player. He asked to come into my office. So this was before, all the open spaces. So he comes into my office and he slams the door and he goes, "I need to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "Well, we hate the quotes." I said, "Okay, well, let's talk about it." And he goes, "No, there's nothing to talk about. We hate them. They're girly girl. We don't want them anymore." And he walked out and slammed the door. So I was like, wow, okay, they don't like them. And I started thinking about it. And he goes, "Well, they're girly girl." Well, I am a girl. So what should I do? Should I continue or should I not? I decided that I was going to take a risk. And even though he didn't want me to do it anymore, that I was still going to do quotes. So I continued to do the quotes. So fast forward. That year, I actually won Manager of the Year at IBM, which is a big honor. We have 480,000 employees and probably 100,000 managers. So I won a Manager of the Year. So I was like, okay, great. We turned the team around. Now, fast forward 10 years later. I get an invitation to a retirement party. And it's this gentleman who's 6'7". So I'm like, ooh, I hope he's not going to try to poison me at the dinner. I don't know. So I went. He sat me at the table of honor beside his wife. So I walked up and I shook his wife's hand and I said, "Hi, I'm Sandy." And she goes, "Oh, you're the quote woman." And I said, "Yes." I go, "I'm so sorry. I know your husband hated the quotes." And she goes, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" She goes, "He put every one of your quotes into a shoebox. And even to this day, he pulls out those quotes that you selected for him because you were his favorite manager." So what does that tell you? Sometimes you've got to show your soft side. It can't just be all about business because, business is personal. You're not B2B anymore, B2C. You're actually P2P, person to person. So how do you encourage people to show their soft side? I told you I love quotes. This is one of my favorites. "Tell me the facts and I'll believe. But if you tell me a story, it will live in my heart forever." And so what I'd love for you guys to think about is a lot of women struggle with this. They want to show their soft side. And in fact, a lot of studies showed by showing your soft side, you're a better manager. You extract better innovation from your team. But they feel pressured in the workforce not to show that soft side and to do like the 6'7" gentleman wanted me to do when he slammed the door. Don't be girly girl. I don't want to hear this soft-sided stuff. But in the real world, it really makes a difference. And so this is why I know most of the room today is men. There's a really big thing called men as allies. Young women coming up in your company, whatever company you're at, whether you're a startup or an enterprise client or a mid-sized client, those women and those girls need men as allies. You need to embrace them in your professional life. You bring a different perspective that can help them. You can educate them. Now, at the bottom, there is a test. I went to Harvard Business School, so truth in advertising, but it is a test that is really interesting because it goes into, do you have an unconscious bias? Take the test. It's really interesting. You'll find it fascinating because everybody does have some sort of unconscious bias. You may not know about it. But if you take the test and you learn what that is, that can help you not just with your employees or with women in your company or your daughter, but it can help you as you do business as well. So I would encourage you to take that test. So showing your soft side, there's a lot of things here that you can do. Show personal interest in someone. I know a lot of times that's not viewed as very positive, but I will tell you that showing personal interest is really important. I know that one of my top business contacts I made, I remember that his daughter had MS. And one of my cousins is actually studying MS and how we could hopefully one day find a cure for it. So I sent him a couple articles about it. And I have to tell you, our relationship was strengthened, not because I, tried to negotiate a better deal, but because I showed personal interest in what he was doing. Write your story. What is your story? Where have you done something to show personal interest? So there's a lot of things here, and as well as skills. I know at even conferences like this, there are interesting things around soft skills versus, I need to learn about the technology. I think a good balance is really important as you move forward. So this is our third hack, and this is around showing your soft side but as well encouraging others to show their soft side as they're developing, as becoming a manager or leader as well. Okay, so let's go on to number 4. And I really like this one because, it's really talking about homework is not a MOOC point, as play on words for moot point. And you guys know that MOOCs have really changed the game and the way you look at skills today. But the point is that practicing and really being prepared is a really important skill, not just rushing through the day. And if you think about one of the hacks that we came up with our survey, we found that a lot of people, because they're so busy, they rush through things and therefore they're not as successful as they could be. So 80% correct is good, but practicing and being prepared really makes a big difference. And let me tell you about why this is really, I think, really important for women. So this is something called the missing 33%. And if you haven't gone onto the TED Talk and watched this, it's a very powerful TED Talk. And what it says is that to be successful at any career, you really need 3 things. You need to understand the business, where the business is headed, and strategy. You need to be able to collaborate and get along with people, and you need to have really strong leadership skills. Those are kind of the 3 things that everybody agrees on. But as you look at mentoring, when women are mentored, they are primarily mentored on leadership, how to be a great leader, and they're mentored on collaboration, how you get along with others, how you're not viewed as being too aggressive but not too soft. Those are the things that women get mentored on. In fact, 97% of the time, women are mentored on those 2 areas. So I challenge you now, hopefully you guys are mentors or sponsors of people. Think about how you mentor them and how much time you spend on those. Because men, when men are mentoring men spend almost all of their time on that 3rd category, which is that business acumen, strategic thinking. They don't spend a lot of time on leadership or collaboration. And so this study says that a lot of times women end up leaving the business because they're not put in profit and loss jobs. They're not put in very great jobs because they have that missing 33%. They haven't been mentored. They haven't been coached on that particular area, that 33%. So to advance to be a leader in a company, you need to understand the finances. You need to understand strategy and visioning. You need to understand what's happening in the business landscape. So I found that this was so important as each of you are thinking about how you mentor today, whether it's men or women, but pay particular attention to women to make sure that you're mentoring them on all 3 areas that are important, not just 2 of them, and leaving out this missing 33%. Help them to be prepared, help them to do their homework, help them to exceed to the next level. So I'll give you a great example. Here in the Bay Area, there's a great company called Xamarin. I don't know if you guys know Xamarin. Nate is the CEO. Xamarin is an amazing way that you can actually test your mobile app, create a mobile app that will go across multiple platforms. So Nate and I were talking, and I was sharing this presentation with him, and he said, you know what, this happened to my sister. And his sister was interested in technology and interested in coding, but she was always coached on being a leader and collaborating, which are very good things, but never coached on the business or the technology side. So she decided she was going to go be a journalist. So she was one of those folks who spent less than 2 years in coding and went to be a journalist. She ended up not really liking it and decided, you know what, I'm going to go after my dream, which is to open a bakery. And so she opened a bakery. She opened it in New York City. She started making these amazing donuts, great treats. But what she found was, as she was doing her business, that she tended back to the tech side. And she wrote a program to manage this bakery. And hopefully you see my 0s and 1s up there. Did you catch that? Yeah, my little donuts are 0s, right? Anyway, so Nate was talking to her, the CEO of Xamarin, and he said, you know what, look, I don't know if I've been a great mentor to you, but I want to be a great mentor now. You have a skill here in running the business and in technology. Why don't you go and do something with that? Because that's really, even in your bakery, you're tending to that side. So she went back to a coding school, and now she has an incredible job leading teams of coders at Time, because that was really her core skill. And she didn't take advantage of that because she was never mentored in those particular areas. So I give you that as a great example of something I think Nate has done from Xamarin, something that all of you in the room can do to really help focus on that missing 33% as we mentor. Okay, so what's your checklist here? If you're mentoring someone, or for you yourself, constantly do a skills assessment. So I do this every year. You know, my husband and I will get a glass of wine. We'll do our New Year's resolutions. And I also add, I make my family, my 2 daughters as well, do a skills assessment. What are the new hot skills? Oh, wow, it's data science. What can we do to grow our skills there? Oh, wow, it's Python. You know, Python just became #1 over Java for #1 taught language in university. Do I know Python? Can I write an app in Python? So do a skills assessment. People get so busy they forget to do this. Think about preparation. You know, before, a lot of people talk about networking. And before you go into a room, you really need to know what value you can bring to the table. And think about that. I don't know if practice is the right word, but to make sure that you're bringing value as well, but ensuring that you're looking at that, and then setting stretch goals. So I set a stretch goal to take one of our Raspberry Pis and hook it up at home to our stereo system. I use some of our IoT recipes we have out there in developer work. So I set some stretch goals. I got it to work, by the way. It took me a long time, but I got it to work. But set stretch goals for yourself so that when you're out there talking to your clients, mentoring people, you're not just talking about it, you've done it. You've experienced it so that you're prepared. You've done your homework and you are prepared as you move forward. Okay, we're ready to go to our 5th. Are you guys all still awake? Yeah? Okay, good. So let's go to our 5th and final one, because this is one of my very favorites. And a lot of times at schools, you know, this is really not taught, but that lifelong relationships are really your breakaway play. I just moved here to the Bay Area about 2 months ago from New York. And I really am fascinated by seeing the relationships here that have been built over the long term versus thinking about relationships as a transaction, right? I'm going to do this deal, and if I negotiate this deal with you, I'm done with the relationship. And one of the things that we found is that women, because they have a lot of times responsibility for kids and cooking dinner and doing other things, they don't focus on relationships as much. They focus on doing their work. And doing your work is great, but you have to have the relationship too. So we just did a study, and we found that if you look at women, 89% of women skip eating lunch with their peers. They eat at their desk. And they do that so they can complete their work to the best of their ability, and then they can leave to go pick up the kids or do some task at home. If you think about men, on average, 32% of men skip lunch with their peers, which means that they're spending time building those lifelong relationships. So I guess I have 2 messages here. One is that if you are, again, mentoring a young girl or woman, encourage her to take time, not just to do the work, that's one piece of the equation, but also to form those relationships. And if you are skipping lunch, like I was doing for so long, you know, make sure you're scheduling the time to have lunch to get to know people as well. So I'll give you a couple, again, a story, because I love stories. Hopefully these stories will live in your heart and you'll take these with you. I actually came to a conference like this, and there was a great speaker, this gentleman I told you, Jeffrey Gitomer, who's written more best-selling business books than anybody else in the world. And so he was speaking, and I noticed that it was a huge room, 5,000 people, and nobody was sitting on the front row. So I decided, well, I'm going to sit on the front row. So I went and sat on the front row, and one of my peers came and sat beside me. Well, he was an amazing speaker, and so I was tweeting the whole time while he was speaking. And my colleague next to me kept saying, he's going to think you're doing email. He's going to think you're not listening, and you're sitting on the front row. So after the presentation, he finished, and he was on a stage like this, and he hadn't broken his leg. So he hopped off the stage after his presentation, and he came running straight up to me on the front row. So he got to me, and the first thing I said was, I wasn't doing email. Promise. I was tweeting. And he said to me, you know what, I know that because he actually had an iPad. He said, I watch the tweets that come in, and I noticed that you were tweeting a lot because you said I was sitting on the front row. And I wanted to thank you for tweeting about my presentation and for sitting on the front row. So we exchanged cards. The next morning, I got this email, and the subject was, Holy Wow. Now, I had all these emails. Which one did you think I opened first? Holy Wow. I had to see what was Holy Wow. So I opened it up, and it was a message from Jeffrey Gittimore. And he said, again, I just wanted to iterate and thank you for sitting on the front row. I read some of your tweets. I'm going to send you a book. So anyway, we started a relationship there for I would provide some advice and counsel, share things for him. He would provide things with me. Turns out I ended up writing a book, and he wrote the foreword of the book. And given he had done so well, the book actually sold out, became a bestseller, translated into 9 languages, all because I sat in the front row, and he and I started sharing things of value back and forth, not trying to take advantage of each other, but actually trying to help each other as we went along, forming a lifelong relationship. So think about what you do, and I'm going to tell a story about my daughter. This is my 16-year-old daughter. She's really good in math, and I don't know how many of you guys have daughters that are great in math. Her teacher called me one day and said, Maria, my daughter, has been selected to go to this special math class, like an AP math class. And this is a really big deal. There's only like 16 students selected. I was like, woo. So when we got home that night, I had bought her flowers. We were going to celebrate. And, of course, she comes in the house, and she's like this. And I'm like, well, what happened today? I thought there was some good news. And she goes, worst news ever. I'm like, really? What's going on? She goes, they selected me for some, stupid AP math thing. And she goes, do you know, Mom, there's only 2 girls in the whole class? And she goes, even the boys in the class are geeks. They're not like, the football players. And I said, okay, so let's talk about this. First of all, she said, I'll do anything, Mom, if I don't have to take the class. I'll cook dinner every night. She doesn't know how to cook, but I'll cook dinner. I'll do whatever you need me to do, but I'm not going to take AP Math. Now think about that. For you guys how many of you are dads or moms and parents? Okay, that's heartbreaking, right? Heartbreaking. And this is today. This isn't in the past. This is today. So I told her, you're going to take the class for sure. Not negotiating on that. But tell me why you don't want to take it. So it turns out there really were no great role models. In this school in New York, there were 16 math teachers. All of them were men, and none of them were cool men. Now, apparently the school had hired a new math teacher who was a woman, super cool. So I actually went to her and I said, I need you to mentor my daughter. I need you to mentor my daughter. So I kept coming back, and she finally said to me, you're not going to go away, are you? I said, I'm not going away. I need a good mentor because I'm not cool. I'm her mom. So I need a good, cool math teacher. So long story short, she started mentoring my daughter, and my daughter has now fallen in love with math because she developed this long-term relationship, now for 2 years, with this math teacher who was like her and who encouraged her, who showed her that math could be cool. And so I guess I challenge all of you, don't let your daughters drop out of math and science at such a young age. Encourage and mentor them. There's a great program called Girls Who Code. IBM sponsors it. Twitter sponsors it. Get involved in it so that you're forming some of these long-term relationships to help our next generation. Now, let me just tell you this. Dads in the room. If you are a dad of a daughter and you encourage your daughter, they're twice as likely to stay in computer science and math. They score higher in STEM classes, that's science, technology, engineering, or math, if you encourage them, if you show them that you care. Like my dad told me that I could do anything that I wanted to do. And he encouraged me, and I think that's why I decided to major in math and computer science, because he told me I could do it. I loved it. He told me I could do it. So I would challenge everyone in the room, whether you're a mom, a dad, an uncle, whatever you are you encouraging your daughters as much as your sons, both, to really take up this math and computer science? Now, some of the things that we're doing to form lifelong relationships, I'm on the board of WITI, Women International, as well as Girls in Tech. And in both cases, we've been studying what happened with law and medicine. You know, today, we're about equal in the number of women lawyers as men lawyers. Same with doctors, about equal between men and women and doctors. And how did that change? Well, as we studied and we talked to these different groups, a lot of this was influenced by media, believe it or not. TV shows, ER, where they showed women doctors, or Law and Order, where they showed women lawyers. So we've been working to really emphasize strong women in TV. So Patricia Arquette, I don't know if you guys know CSI Cyber, it just got re-upped. Patricia Arquette has become a spokesperson for women in tech. She helps us with girls in tech because she's seen as a role model, as a woman who is strong and doing cybersecurity on TV versus if you like Mad Men. I actually like the show, but it really showcases women, you know, who are doing technology kind of as a secretary sitting in a glass room. So we're really, really trying to impact this in more than just one way. Okay, so forming those lifelong relationships, what can you do? You know, you might not be able to influence a TV show, although there may be someone in here who can. Network, you know, network. Help form those lifelong relationships. And when you network, don't just go for you and think about what I can get out of this networking session or sitting at the bar here at the Hyatt, you know, talking to people, but what can I give as well? How can I form that lifelong relationship? The study also showed that people with a career advisory team, so if you think about a board, whether you're a startup or an enterprise, you know, your board has someone who knows marketing and maybe someone who knows finance on a company's board. Well, as a person, for your career, do you have people on your career board who can advise you in all those pieces? The other one is be present and engaged. I spoke to a group of about 2,000 millennials, and it was really funny because they were asking me, you know, how can we network? What can we do? And then right before the session, we had a little networking thing, and guess what they were doing the whole time? People were supposed to be talking. They were on their phone like this, right, doing this. And so I told them, be present and engage. So when you're in the presence of somebody, you want to form a relationship, probably isn't good to be texting someone who's halfway across the country. Be present and engaged as you move forward. Okay, so there's lots of things happening here. I know some of you came up to me afterwards and said, oh, I hope you're going to be talking about IBM Cloud. I could talk about those things, but I wanted to share this because I thought it would be part of that soft side, something that we could make a difference on, and something that can really help us change the world in terms of innovation. But we do have lots of cloud sessions here too, so just because I didn't talk about it doesn't mean you can't find it here somewhere at CloudEXPO. And one of the things that I've done is I've written 4 books now. This one I invested in, I'm giving this away. It's called Geek Girls Are Chic. There's a long URL there. I don't know why they didn't put the short one there, but we'll get you a short one. You can actually Google it and find it. But I wrote, we went through 5 hacks today, but there are 7 hacks that are all based on research that work for men or women, but they really were found to be areas that women and girls were lacking as they're going for a tech career. So I hope today you've taken away some nuggets. I hope you've taken one of those stories or 2 of those stories and you've stored them in your heart. But most importantly, I hope that you're going to leave here and that you're going to take some action. You're going to be a mentor. You're going to maybe coach your daughter or your niece, that you're going to make an impact at work by encouraging the young women in tech who are in your company to really be successful. And if you do that, then our presentation today has been great. And I do want to thank CloudEXPO, Roger, and Carmen for putting this on the agenda. Thank you guys very much.